This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. I am a pragmatic optimist. I'm somebody who wants to be realistic about the situation that we're in, but also don't think that my pragmatism should stop me from being optimistic. It's in everything I do. It's all over this channel. I am pragmatic, but I am optimistic. And part of that is looking at the Browns situation right now. And it's easy to get lost into just making videos about how bad the Browns are and basically crying into an echo chamber of other Browns fans. If we want to be pragmatic while remaining optimistic about the Browns' chances for this season or about the Browns' ability to get the most out this season, we have to have a conversation about how long the leash is for Deshaun Watson and what that leash should be measured by for this season for him to remain the starter. Because I would argue in 2 of the 3 games, I don't believe Deshaun Watson has done enough to justify remaining the starter of the team. That doesn't mean bench him immediately, but that does mean that you have to start considering it. And in order to start considering it, you have to have some things, some tangible things to really measure that against. And that's what I want to talk about today. I have 3 metrics that I would use to kind of judge whether Deshaun Watson should remain the starter. I chose these 3 metrics because I think that these 3 things are pivotal to the Browns' plan to win football games, especially if they don't have elite quarterback play. The metrics are pressure to sack rate when the ball is held for 2.5 seconds or longer. The second metric is score percentage. What percentage of possessions do you score points, field goals, or touchdowns? And the third metric is intermediate passing efficiency measured by first downs. The thought process behind this is that these are all metrics that measure your ability to stay ahead of the sticks and stay on the field offensively and score points. If the Browns want to win games the way that they're built, especially if they're not going to have a top 5 quarterback play where they're going to be able to be explosive and move the ball up and down the field at will, they have to be the type of team that can win time of possession, that can have long scoring drives consistently, that can get field goals and touchdowns out of most their drives in order to control the game. Right now, the Browns have a horrible score percentage, which does not help them win games currently. They have a horrible pressure to sack percentage when having more than 2.5 seconds on pocket time. And they're awful in intermediate passing efficiency measured by first downs. All of these things, in my mind, has led to a horrific point total so far for the Cleveland Browns offense. This is a team that has not been able to score 20 points, that has invested in a number 1 wide receiver, a number 2 wide receiver, a number 1 tight end, an entire offensive line, and a quarterback. We've paid serious money at all of those positions. The Browns can't get more than 18 points right now. That's not going to lead to winning football. If they want to play winning football, they have to be better in these metrics in order to do so. Now, each of these metrics, I have a threshold in place that I think is needed to be able to play the style of football that the Browns need to play in order to win games. That threshold is in place for 2 reasons. One, it is legitimately what I believe the Browns need to achieve in order to have an offense that can win games with the current defense that they have. And 2, because the threshold for the goal of any of these metrics that I'm going to mention in these videos has been reached by backup quarterbacks on Kevin Stefanski teams in the last 2 years. So it's reasonable to expect that if Deshaun Watson cannot reach these goals by like week 7, that you could put somebody like a Jameis Winston in, who is a backup level quarterback, And with Kevin Stefanski, you should be able to create an offense that can reach these goals because Kevin has been able to do it before. If you are somebody who is open to benching Deshaun Watson, but you don't want to make a purely emotional decision, this is a way to measure it, because I truly believe if Deshaun can't get these numbers, he's not helping you win more than a backup quarterback would. If Deshaun is at these numbers, then you're fine. It makes no sense to take him out. You wouldn't get an upgraded quarterback play. And if Deshaun gets above these numbers, obviously we're good here, right? But he has to hit these marks between week 4 and week 7 in order to justify him starting anymore. These metrics, because right now the Browns are hitting historic lows in score percentage. They're at 24% score percentage, which is 30th in the NFL right now, the lowest in the league, despite the fact that the Browns have the most attempted drives in the NFL. Pressure to sack rate when holding on to the ball more than 2.5 seconds is abysmal for the Cleveland Browns. Right now, they are at 30.3%, really Deshaun Watson, because he's the only one who's played quarterback so far. And that is 5th highest in the NFL. And first down rate on 10 to 19 yard passes, intermediate passing, the Browns are at 35%. League average is like 45. The Browns are usually sitting at 50% in that statistic. They're at 35% right now. You're not going to win very many games if you can't get many first downs. You're not going to win very many games if you take a lot of sacks whenever you try to make something happen outside of the structure of play. And you're not going to win very many games if you can only score 1/4 of the amount of times that you get the ball. You're just not going to be able to win games like that. Even if the defense plays elite, even if the defense plays top notch, you're not going to score that many points and you're not going to win that many games. These numbers for the Cleveland Browns are a recipe to go and win 6 games. Like, this is what that's cooking up. It needs to get better by any means necessary. These numbers need to get better. In order for the Browns to play winning football, I really think they need to get this score percentage up to 40%. I think that is the bare minimum. Like, if you can't get to 40% with Watson, he's got to go. You got to try it with somebody else, because it's been proven that with non-starters, Kevin Stefanski can get that number to 40%. If Deshaun Watson can't get that number to 40%, he's got to hit the pine. He's got to go. It's a mandatory number, right? You got to get the 40% score percentage by the end of the year, or at least have a split where the last 14 weeks of the season, you're at 40% at the very least in score percentage. The reason you want a high score percentage if you're the Cleveland Browns is because that is integral to how you play football. The Browns aren't a team that's going to thrive if they get like 12, 15 drives a game. The way the Browns beat teams is playing time of possession and defense, right? So they want to hold on to the ball when they're on offense, and they want to play great defense and suffocate teams and get them off the field very quickly. This requires scoring and being efficient on every drive that you have. You don't got to score a touchdown every time you get the ball, but you want to be able to get a field goal or a touchdown at least 40% of the time that you get the ball. That puts you in a good chance to win the game. Because the Browns don't get the ball that often, because the Browns don't have that many drives in them in a game because of how they want to play. Again, if he can't get to that number, the Browns aren't going to be able to score enough points, and we aren't going to win that many games. So, got to get that number up. 24 is unspeakably bad for the Cleveland Browns. You cannot sit at 24 and expect to win more than 6 games for the rest of the season. Got to get that number up to 40. Pressure to sack rate when holding the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. Now, this is a super specific stat, but I think it illustrates something that's going on with Deshaun Watson, and that's creating a lot of Deshaun Watson's problems right now, especially with the offensive line. Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns in general are experiencing a Kevin Stefanski era high in this statistic. Deshaun Watson is personally at the highest pressure to sack rate that he's ever been. And this is a concern because when you hold the ball for more than 2.5 seconds, you're doing that intentionally. Either you're trying to break away from a sack or you're trying to make something happen behind the line of scrimmage to get the ball downfield, right? That's why the 2.5 seconds, longer than 2.5 seconds part, really does matter with this statistic and why this distinction matters. What is concerning about this stat for Deshaun Watson is simple. It's at 30.2%. That's fifth highest in the NFL. This is extra concerning for Deshaun Watson when you consider that in 2020, he was at 21.4 on pressure to sack percentage. In 2023, he was at 23.4. So he's up 7 points in his pressure to sack percentage in just this last year. So that means when he gets pressured and he breaks sacks, he's not doing that anymore at a high rate. That's something he did well in 2023. It's not happening for him. To keep in mind just how high that 30% number is for a quarterback in this scenario on pressure to sack. Remember Baker Mayfield in 2021, and remember how frustrating it was how many sacks that he took that felt like they were avoidable? Well, Baker Mayfield was also at 30% in that specific stat that year. So that's a concern. There has also been a huge drop-off in Deshaun's ability to throw on the run this season. It's not just that it's regressed, it's fallen off a cliff, and you can argue that before this year, it had regressed significantly. Here's what I mean. When Deshaun holds the ball 2.5 seconds or longer in 2020, right, his peak year, he had a PFF grade of 93.9. He had a quarterback rating of 113. He had a big time throw percentage of 12.2% to 3.3% turnover worthy play percentage. That's amazing. That's a top 5 quarterback number right there. He also only held the ball for more than 2.5 seconds on 56% of his dropbacks, and he had a 13.5 average depth of target and a 40% first down percentage when he holds the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. So those are really good numbers. Last year, Deshaun Watson had a pressure to sack rate that we already mentioned of 23.4. He had a PFF grade of 69.1, a quarterback rating of 82, a big time throw percentage of 4.3%, and a turnover worthy percentage of 3.1. An average depth of target of 12.8 yards and a 27% first down rate. And he held the ball for more than 2.5 seconds for 60% of his dropbacks. So it is a significant fall from what he was doing in 2020. We all kind of knew that. But then you look at what the fall off has been for this year, and it's just stark. It's disturbing, the fall off for him in this category. So when he holds the ball for more than 2.5 seconds, 30% pressure to sack rate, 44.4 PFF grade. I mean, he went from a 93.9 to a 44.4, a 57 quarterback rating. Remember, in 2020, he was at 113, a 3.7% big time throw percentage, 2.4% turnover worthy play. He's scrambling or he's holding the ball for more than 2.5 seconds on 53% of his dropbacks. So that's not that concerning of a number. But what is a concerning number is his 9.2 average depth of target. And even more concerning, 13% first down rate when he holds the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. So he's holding the ball longer. He's not throwing the ball downfield with that extra time. And he's not able to break sacks or get out of pressures with his athletic ability at even close to the same rate that he was able to do it even in 2023. What this means to me is that the Browns should be concerned that there has been a fall off in his physical ability to throw on the run, or at least to improvise on the run. It does not seem to be there. Now, the one area where Deshaun Watson has not regressed as significantly is his ability to run. His PFF grades when it comes to running the football this year are like at 68. They were at 87 in 2020. So it's like a little bit of a regression, but he's still a good runner. I think they need to make the adjustment. If Deshaun Watson breaks that pocket for any reason, he needs to run. Like run or throw it out of bounds. But him trying to make a play downfield, like he will make a big throw every once in a while, but it's just not worth the risk from what he's been putting up statistically. Now, again, it's early in the season. Maybe he changes this and rectifies this by the end of the season. But right now, this stark of a difference in his 2023 numbers to 2024, when he's already played over half of the amount of games that he played in 2023, it's concerning. It's very concerning. The most concerning thing to me is the sack rate. That's why I pinpointed that as what needs to improve. If he can change that, you have a chance to make this a lot less damaging of an issue for the Cleveland Browns. But as it stands right now, it's a problem that exists that's making other problems that exist worse. And that is also adding to other problems that exist worse, right? He's making the offensive line worse because of this stat. And the offensive line being worse is making it a lot easier to blitz the Browns. It's just creating problem on top of problem on top of problem. He does not seem like throughout this first 3 games of 2024 to be physically capable of doing anything damaging when he breaks that pocket anymore. Honestly, his best stuff this year has been within the pocket. It's been like that for a couple of years, honestly. I think he needs to stay in that pocket. I think the way he can improve that number and get closer to 23 is if he just takes the decision part of it out, right? I think a lot of what's leading to that 30% number is that he's thinking too much. He's too much decision making that he has to do there. He clearly can't make those decisions as fast as he used to or as fast as he wants to. So I think you just got to take the decision making part out of it. If you're there longer than 2.5 seconds, just run. I think that will dramatically decrease that number and dramatically increase the amount of first downs that the Browns get and dramatically increase the Browns score percentage in turn. So I think he needs to make that decision, that adjustment, that if it's 2.5 seconds, he's just got to run or throw it out of bounds because it is not worth him hanging on to that ball longer than that. It has not been worth it, not even remotely close to worth it. Another thing that needs to happen with Deshaun Watson is that he has to get back to throwing this ball between 10 to 19 yards again. I talked about this in a video where 65% of Deshaun Watson's throws are either behind the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, which is a higher percentage than what DTR was doing last year. Like he has not just become a check down king, he has been only a check down king. Like he has been way too reliant on throwing this ball short. He's not really been a threat to throw this thing intermediate. And the concerning thing about that, of course, is that intermediate throws is where Deshaun Watson used to shine. That has to come back. He has to get used to throwing the ball intermediate, or he has to at least be efficient when he does throw the ball intermediately, because that's another problem with it, right? Not only is he throwing the ball in the intermediate area of the field less than he's ever done it, it's also less efficient than he's ever done it. Right now, when he drops back and attempts to throw a ball in that intermediate portion of the field, 10 to 19 yards, he only ends up with a first down 35% of the time. I want you to think about that. When he sets up to throw the ball 10 to 19 yards, 10 being the amount of yards it usually takes to get a first down, he's only getting a first down 35% of the time. That is not good. The number you have to shoot for that rate that should be manageable for Deshaun Watson is 50%. You got to at least be at 50%. Deshaun Watson in 2022 was at 55% on intermediate passing first down rate. In 2023, he was at 53%. He should be above 50. I mean, Joe Flacco was at 50. Jacoby Brissett was at 55. This is a doable number for a quarterback in the Kevin Stefanski offense. It's the bare minimum that you really got to hit to be a quarterback in the Kevin Stefanski offense. You got to be better than 50% here, or else you got to move on and put somebody else in, because it has been proven that Kevin can get 50% out of somebody like a Jameis Winston or something like that. But 35% is just way too low here. He has to be better at that. So if you're a Deshaun Watson stan and you still want Deshaun Watson to happen and you want him to play for the rest of the season, understand, you got to hit these metrics, because these are replacement level numbers that Kevin Stefanski's been able to hit. He's hit these numbers with Jacoby Brissett. He's hit these numbers with Joe Flacco. He's hit these numbers, some of them with one-arm Baker Mayfield. He should be able to hit this number with almost any backup or starting quarterback that he has on the roster. These are baseline, stock, basic expectations for a quarterback in Kevin Stefanski's offense, given what Kevin has done with multiple different quarterbacks. He's always been able to get a quarterback to have a score percentage at least over 31%. Deshaun Watson is sitting at 24. Right now, that score percentage is not justifiable to have him out there if he can't increase it. Pressure to sack rate, he's never been below 25 with a single quarterback. Deshaun Watson's at 35% with this sack rate. It's super unacceptable. It's got to be higher than that, especially in the specific situation where he's holding on to the ball for 2.5 seconds or longer. And keep in mind, this is not just a high or tied for a high with 2021 Baker Mayfield for Kevin Stefanski's offense. This is a career high for Deshaun Watson. Like, he's usually at 23% in this specific stat. He's at 30 right now. It's a ridiculous number. And the first down rate on intermediate passing just has to be above 50%. He's gotten that out of Flacco. He's gotten that out of Jacoby Brissett. He got that out of Baker Mayfield. He's got to get that out of Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson can't hit these metrics, that means the Browns aren't going to be able to put together an offense that can win games and execute what Kevin wants to do in order to win games. And if you can't do that, you can't justify having Deshaun Watson out there. So these are the metrics he must hit to justify him being out there. If he can't, the solution is obvious. You got to bench him at that point for the betterment of the team. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.